YouTube. So I just wanted to tell you guys really quickly, while I have a couple minutes here, what happened at my last sleep study and why I will be having another sleep study in the next couple of weeks. So I had a really awful experience, and I think it's important to talk about because it was a sobering reminder for me that people do things to hurt others and take advantage of people in vulnerable situations, and it's really unfortunate and sad, but this is just a warning for anybody, for male or female, when you're in a vulnerable situation, that there can still be unwanted touch, there can still be things that can happen to you. So I don't know what to call this video, honestly. I went in for the sleep study. It took weeks, months, years to be considered to have this sleep study, and this is my fifth one that I've had where they were going to be trying the supplemental oxygen as well as titrating the ASV settings, which we didn't really do with the fourth sleep study. So anyway, I'm just gonna do long story short. I went in and they had me all set up in the room. I was sitting on the chair. The technician came in and he began by putting the strap around my chest in a very strange way, and then he proceeded to jiggle my chest up and down a bunch of times. And that was the first thing for me where I was like, okay, that was a little weird. But again, I could see the oxygen tank in the hallway, and I know if you have central apnea or obstructive and you're just getting caught in this, or you've been in it for a little while, you know how desperate it's your sleep and your breathing, you know how desperate it can make you feel. And that's exactly how I felt that day, or I felt like I had a hard time standing up for myself. I remember thinking in my head, I was like, just sit through this and eventually they will, you'll get in the bed and you can try this, and just do it, because it's going to take forever to get back in here and I don't want to cause problems or anything like that. So I continued to let this person put the wires onto my head, and I quickly became aware that he was leaning his genitals. I could clearly feel his penis in my shoulder, and I'm sure you're thinking, oh, maybe it was a crowded space. No, it wasn't. Maybe this guy was just really big or small or whatever, didn't have a lot of room. I don't know. No, there was tons of room, and like I said, this is my fifth one. The other sleep studies, I never came into contact with the technician's physical body in any way, shape, or form. If they were going, it's a really invasive thing to go through, and if they were going to put tape anywhere or glue anything anywhere or touch me anywhere, they would let me know, and it was appropriate and it was comfortable. I mean, it was comfortable as can be, but it wasn't inappropriate. I didn't feel like crawling out of my skin at all through it. And this, I wanted to run away screaming. This was like he just kept pressing himself further and further into my arm, just unnecessarily and this is really hard for me to describe, but he kept knocking my boobs in some way. And now I'm a larger chested woman. I get it if it happens once or maybe even twice while you're trying to put all this stuff on me. I'm not gonna be like, rape, but it just kept happening, and I was shocked. I was just like, he touched it again. He touched it again. He didn't need to touch it. He wasn't in the area. There was no reason. So that was incredibly weird. And then again, when he was pressing himself into me, putting on the electrodes, he had tons of room. If you've ever had a sleep study, they do some on one side, they do some on the other. He had tons of room to go over to the other side of my head to put the rest of the electrodes in, and he didn't. He continued to press himself further and lean over me to put the electrodes in on the other side. And I just sat through it. I do remember thinking maybe I should say something, maybe I should go ask for help with the other technicians, but I don't know why I felt completely paralyzed in the moment. I was genuinely afraid, and eventually he got me into the bed, and he was incredibly, just weirdly hands-on. Wouldn't let me put my own mask on. I've had this condition for how long now? I know how to put on my fucking mask. I've had the same mask for the entire time. Know what I'm doing there. I mean, that sounds like more of a complaint, I guess, but it just, I really did not like him putting it on, strapping it onto my head, leaning into me, leaning in my face unnecessarily like that. He strapped it incredibly tight as well, and then wouldn't let me like loosen it. He took my phone physically out of my hands and put it on the floor. It was just a really strange experience, to the point where I fell asleep for a little bit, because they did the ASV just to like titrate and see how that was going. And I fell asleep for a little bit. I woke up in one of my like panic attacks that I have with my heart, and he came into the room. He was leaning over me, and like I lay back down. He adjusted a couple of the wires, and then I physically had my, I keep saying physically, but sorry. I had my arms up like this to cover my chest. I pulled the blanket up because he just kept bumping my chest. And I was really upset by that, and I was afraid he was going to, do it again and again. And so I kind of like leaned over like this onto my side. And just before he left, he patted down my shoulder, and I felt a squeeze on my left breast. And then he left the room, and I texted my partner, because he's just, over just down the road where we live. And I was telling him, I need to get out of here. Like, I am afraid of him coming back in the room. I'm afraid he's going to touch me more. I honestly, I don't know if I'm being dramatic. I don't know if but it just keeps happening, and I don't have an explanation for it. And so I ended up telling him I had a family emergency, and I went home. All the glue and everything's still in my hair. And I ended up calling them the next day, and I told them what happened, and they were very upset about it, and, handled it really well. They launched, an investigation, and whatever. I honestly don't care. I just don't want to come in contact with that person again. And so basically at this point, I have another sleep study booked, and that's all I really have to say about that. I feel incredibly stupid even talking about it, and that's the problem with things like this, is that you feel like it's in your head, and you make excuses sometimes, and you just like... The point is he should never have come into contact with me in any way. Once is one thing, an accident, but it shouldn't have happened like that. And so I'll be going to do that again. And I also talked to my sleep doctor today. I am going to be trialing oxygen at home, probably in the next couple of days, just for a night or two, to see if it relieves the gasping symptoms that I have been dealing with for 7 years. And I feel like some people don't really understand what it is to have central sleep apnea. I don't just like sleep with a mask and go to sleep, and I, have desaturations in the night and I don't know about them. I'm aware of every single one because they wake me up with a, heart pounding or an arrhythmia or a panic attack or gasping, symptoms of low oxygen and dizziness and weakness and fainting. I also have, or not fainting, but like where you feel like you're going to faint. I've never fainted in my life, but I also struggle with hallucinations, and I don't really get deep sleep. The only sleep I get is like, I think REM, when you have like really vivid dreams. It severely impacts my life, and that's why I'm so desperate to get this looked at and why I document it. And so yeah, if anything, ever happens to you and you're at a sleep study or anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, please say something. Don't sit through it like I did, and don't feel stupid, because it is an invasive thing. And honestly, some people are just not good with boundaries. They're not, then they shouldn't be doing that job. I don't know what to tell you there, but yeah, I'm gonna go now. I'm at the beach with my kiddos. It took me a long time to be able to make this video, but I think it's important, so there it is. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.